All right. So thanks everyone for taking your time and interest in joining the webinar today. I'll be your host. I am Arvind Jairam, Chief Technology Officer of Mekkanos Limited. So during the webinar today, if you have any questions, I request you to please note it down so I can address those questions at the end of the session. And more importantly, I would like to talk about the details of digital transformation and its journey. So apologies if it extends for 5-10 minutes. Um, so to begin with, so I would like to talk about uh, digital transformation and or otherwise called digitization. Before looking at the reality of digital transformation strategy, I want to highlight a little bit on digitization, right? What's going on in the current climate. So digitization is the journey that's been, every enterprise has been for over 25 years now, and we have seen that accelerating through emerging technologies. If you look at a typical business process today, it is not completely digital, where it's digital imports are being used in the digital process, but not fully digital. So in my next 20, 30 minutes, I'll talk about how RPA acts as a catalyst for digital transformation push. In this exciting and transformating world where companies are quickly shifting from basic automation to advanced enterprise-wide RPA, machine learning and cognitive capabilities have increased. So RPA acts as a catalyst, which also works well with artificial intelligence integrations. So it is important for organizations to remain flexible and open to change. I think the one thing that seems very clear is that digital transformation is here to stay, and it's going to continue to reshape the way how we think and how business operate. Um, so I'll be so to start with. So these are the agenda for the day. I'll be talking about these 5 points today in our session. So this, these 5 points, talks about um, what Mekkanos suggests as a reality in digital transformation, along with a couple of key valid points. To start with, I would like to talk about RPA and why is it adopted across industries. So basically, RPA is a type of automation where a machine completes a task that was traditionally done by a human. It is used for automating repetitive, mundane, low value tasks to serve the business better. Right now, if you look at the business climate, 90% of the business, 90% of the RPA implementations are from business, right? So, as some of the recent analysis done by Gartner, uh, Gartner predicts by 2023 there will be a 30% increase in the use of RPA for front office functions. RPA has RPA has really democratized integrations and automation, leading to widespread business adoption. And it's predicting that 60% vendor revenue growth uh, can be expected out of RPA. So RPA, so that's RPA in a nutshell. Um, um, and why? There's a question why RPA is such a hype and why people are on organizations are talking about RPA. I think the key benefits for those is for RPAs. I think the power of RPA can be taken even further and provide a more efficient and effective workflows for the hybrid workforce. When it's paired with advanced process intelligence, and when RPA is paired with advanced process intelligence, I think its power is unimaginable, where a complete business process can be digitized, as I highlighted earlier, right? Um, so having said that, in today's business climate, it is important to understand the power of RPA and that how it's used to, you know, reap, or how it's used to make the business operations better. Some of the key benefits are, for RPA is it reduces time drastically in everyday operations. It's cost effective as it works 24/7, unlike manual labor, and the operational risks are low, especially situations like COVID-19, right? So that's one of the key benefit of RPA. And coming to the second one is it provides RPA provides insights on the transactional data as we function every day, as business process functions every day. Uh, it RPA RPA provides an analytics enablement or kind of it provides a data where you can use those data to improve the business functions and process, using bot analytics, where automation anywhere itself provides. um, and talking about business process, right? So what it does to business process, it provides process adherence as it uses set of standard rules based on practices, and how and here in RPA, there's a famous word called bot. You call a software machine as a bot, where that performs the instructed business process. So you instruct the bot to follow a specific practice, and thus it reduces human error and manual errors, and also it increases the productivity. um, so most of the companies have, they have seen a significant increase in the operational function, so which led to using the manual labors rather than using them for lower value tasks, using them on higher value tasks or priority tasks. Uh, and since the talking about the fourth point, since the delivery and operations and productivity are the foundation where our RPA kind of shows more benefit on that side, I think it significantly increases customer and employee experience as well. Of course, RPA, since it's a bot, a machine, a program, where the chances of errors are way more low, and it provides more security and enterprise IT, with the help of IT and securities in your enterprise. So you can enhance the security on how you work with data, and you have better control over the data. So this is on a whole of RPA and what are its benefits. I'm hoping that now you get an idea of, for people who don't know what's RPA and what it does. So I think it gives an idea of what RPA and how it supports digital transformation. And moving ahead with the next one, I think this particular slide that we are looking at is so this is one of the slides from Automation Anywhere itself. Mekkanos is a key partner with Automation Anywhere, and this slide shows how RPA is used in the current business climate. Right, when I say current climate with regards to COVID-19, right? Um, I think right now, if you look at it, so the common functions or common verticals where RPA is mostly used for COVID-19 is, of course, for healthcare, where a lot of applications or COVID forms, you call it, for patients who wants to do check or make general checks and things like that. So there's a huge data sitting for a manual work. So with the use of a cognitive solution of automation named as IQBot, and you can also see Microsoft Cognitive Services. So with the use of that, you can extract the data and the workflows, which can provide you an output, a simple output, for like a CSV file or an Excel file. So essentially, that's how RPA is used, for in the healthcare industry. And with regards to banking, I think paycheck protection program, right? So this is also one of those use cases where where banks need to provide loans. So this process, if you look at it, uh, a bot processing can be effective in this cases where you need to work with a lot of data and user details and loan details and all that. And the next one is airline industry. I think Automation Anywhere, it has a call center bot to improve the customer experience. As you can see, there is 700% increase in process to customer request and 4,000 requests processed daily. So that's the speed, and that's how RPA is efficient, and as it significantly reduces manual effort. And if you look at the telecom, industries also, I think most of the intelligent use cases, bots, do well in telecom industry as well, right? Considering the current situation. And talking about this RPA during global pandemic, right? And I would like to talk on how is it for the organizations that has implemented RPA, right? So if you look at it, organizations that have implemented automation previous to this crisis, so that will have an easier time dealing with all the nuances of setting up remote work, keeping up with similar levels of productivity by relying on automated back office activities, and helping customer support staff with front office bots. There is front office and back office bots extensively. There is separate standard practices with regards to in automation anywhere that you can make use of, and many other ways that can help them weather these turbulent times with the help of automated business process. How it's going to look like, right? Conclusively, as we observe that current COVID-19 pandemic is more likely to bring more changes in work style of customers or of consumers and clients, I think RPA is definitely a recession-proof technology which will cater to their needs every single time. And there are other use cases as well, so we wanted to highlight a couple of use cases on these industries. So going ahead with the next slide is prevalent strategy versus why RPA projects fail. Prevalent RPA strategy, right? So basically, if you look at these 7 pillars as a process, as a key logical steps in implementing a strategy, I think this is one of the common strategy that's used across the industries. I mean, organizations. But then, so we think it is effective for the organizations where RPA is already established, right? For adopting and implementing this strategy for new players is definitely difficult because of the reasons that you can see on the right side of the screen, which I'm going to talk about. Though the strategies is concrete, but somewhere the new players are still struggling to implement and scale up RPA. I think that's where Mekkanos wanted to highlight it in this webinar. And I think in the following slides, I'll talk about the reality and what reality in digital transformation strategy, with RPA. And we'll talk about a few lessons learned. And so we look at it in the following slides. And talking about why RPA initiatives fail, right? Though automation anywhere has been their industry for a couple of years, but then most of the implementation that's been already done, it's like not very efficient. 30 to 50% of the companies are still failing in the RPA initiatives, right? So if you look at it, the first point, it talks about the holistic view. Like often the new players, they don't have the holistic view. What I mean by holistic view is without the larger plan in place. I think this is the prerequisite, the first early stages of implementing RPA. Without the larger plan in place, teams can struggle through the RPA implementation to get to the end of the project, only to realize that it is actually the beginning of the next relay. When I say beginning of the next relay, as in when the players start working with automation anywhere, at the end of the journey, they realize that applying machine learning on top of the new digitized data, it's more essential. So what started as a quick sprint can transform into long, multi-stage relay race. I think I think with the right planning and comprehensive design from the beginning, I think pre-implementation, each RP implementation would deliver a much better outcome. So I think that's having a larger plan in place is essential before getting into RP implementation. And governance. So talking about governance, many companies or most of the companies think that once bots are set up, once the bots are built and set up, they'll just run in the background and operate autonomously, which is not the case, right? The reality is bot needs constant management and maintenance, over their productive life. If you look at it, RPA is not a single component. It interacts with a lot of other components, as in a lot of other softwares in the process. So each software will have a couple of versions up and running at one time, and given scale and deployment, so there will be security patches or other updates happening, continuously, I think, across different versions. So I think with these thousands of moving parts at play, I think a strong governance with a command and control is the only way to deploy RPA at a scale and automate mission critical process that keeps the lights on. So that's the role of a governance, how governance works with RPA, and coming to complexity and misunderstanding, right? So see, 38% of executives, they feel that projects fail because they are too complex, and rest are because the intended automation processes are not understood, or there is not enough understanding of the automation tools. So understanding the process complexity is essential. So when you start with the process, understanding the complexity and what in terms of vendor engagement, what vendor you've chose to start the journey, those are essential to work with. Each your business might require completely a new vendor. That's how you need to select. So having a right vendor and understanding what it can give you is essential, and that's with regards to complexity and excluding identity security. This point is right. So as I highlighted earlier, 90% of the customers are business, and in most of the implementations, IT and security are not considered until a problem arises, and which is most probably the stage of RPA deployment, where you put the bot to test. Due to unexpected changes in the landscape, bots might need to reconfigure sometimes, and you end up scraping the process because of not understanding what external factors like infrastructure and security policies could play out. So including them in the pre-stage is very essential. And coming to RPA death spiral. So RPA death spirals is nothing but right now, in the previous point I spoke of business, right? 90% of the process is business. So with the easy access to the UI based automation is generally UI based, and the line of business owners create RPA bots to automate processes without having to ask for IT and the development assistance. So after little trial and error, they can get some basic automation up and running, but sooner or later, if something changes, interfaces are optimized, data formats evolve, or even maybe connected dependent systems are upgraded. Regardless of this cost, the outcome is the same. The broken bots. Having broken bots in place, each time a bot breaks, the line of business requires technical assistance to fix the issue. So until the next time the same issue comes up. So shared services organizations who are not closely working with IT are often hit the hardest. So it is right to include IT and security in the early stages of planning. Another point is lack of post-implementation plan that I'll talk about in the later slides, that talks about support and maintenance. So I'll highlight it later. So coming to the key part of this webinar is the reality of transformation strategy, right? So here we are going to provide you insights on how you implement an RPA. Right now, for RPA implementation, the first thing that you need is RPA vendor engagement. So if you look at it, how do you do a vendor engagement, right? So when RPA initially comes as a light bulb idea, so what you feel is first you need to prepare a questionnaire, understanding this for the new players and people who want to establish RPA into as a expand into their organizations. So first you prepare a questionnaire on how to select the RPA vendor and why do you want RPA in your organization, and understanding that is more essential. What repetitive task, or what end of the day, what are we going to bring on the table? So that is key. Why do you want RPA, and what benefits can the vendor bring on the table? That is essential. So there are multiple vendors, so you'll have to identify the right vendor for your RPA journey. So having this in place, I think also another important point is in the questionnaire you need to identify or the key factor to understand the key factor of implementation cost and licensing cost. Each vendor will have different licensing cost. So have you first preparing the questionnaire. So what do you do after questionnaire, we would recommend you to invite RPA vendors on premise, to the workplace and ask them to present a case on with the help of this, this question that you prepared. Ask them to present a case on how to, how do you want to go ahead with RPA journey. That's key. And after that, you also ask for a customer reference from the relevant industry. For staffing industry, if you can use the same staffing client who has implemented RPA, I think that's an additional factor that you can consider before choosing the RPA vendor. And the second point is executing POC. So POC, basically proof of concept. Proof of concept generally happens to put your business assumptions and other RPA assumptions to test. It's a 2 days activity where you identify a simple process and then put it in place. So the reason you do a POC first is basically when you're in a position to showcase to the senior management to raise funding for the pilot. So before getting to the initial implementation for the pilot, so it is essential to do POC and then showcase it to them how RPA is going to support the transformation of the business. So and more important point that I would like to highlight is generally rather than explaining in theories and all that, RPA is well understood if you visually present it to them. So having a POC in place and visually presenting it to the business, I think that in that ways business will also the business management will also understand how RPA is going to be useful in transforming the business, and you can also raise a fund for your pilot. So after successful execution of POC, so here comes the RPA pilot stage. I think this is a crucial stage where you need to, kind of, because since it's an expansion strategy, you having the right infrastructure to execute the pilot or having the right setup, as we looked at in the earlier slides, what as a prerequisite, what needs to be done. So I think having that in this stage is essential, because starting small in pilot and then expanding in later stages will be helpful. So setting the systems right are key. So pilots are generally executed between 8 to 12 weeks. It's 8 to 12 weeks activity. In order to execute a pilot, identifying the right process is the key. So right process is the process that can be taken into account, so that you can show good return on investments, because when you raise a funding, you invest on something, right? Invest on licensing cost and everything. So that is key. And the goal is to generate maximum ROI, ensure that happens to raise more funding for expansion. So which means pilot lays as a foundation for adoption and implementation of RPA. So coming to the next one is business case. So this is, I think, we feel where this is the crucial role, a crucial stage where you need to raise a funding for the complete expansion after the pilot, after the post-pilot impact, what you've learned and all that. When you prepare a business case, having the showcasing the maximum ROI and having the positive impact of pilot will help you prepare a business case, and also to raise your funding. So I think investment should cover a license infrastructure, and throughout the roadmap, what are the other investments that you planning to, like resources, it could be anything, right? So once the business case is presented and once the funding is raised for your transformation journey, I think we cannot go back for more funds from the business. So planning it right over here is very important. And going to the next slide is discovery. So discovery, I think we have been, people who know RPA, discovery phase is a key phase, right? So basically, if you look at it, this is where you identify what process to automate and things like that. So some of the key questions that you should remember is, it is essential to identify what is the volume of transactions that involve manual intervention, and it is also important to identify how much labor effort it's going to reduce, and what are the components that are being that will get involved in the discovery and the process, and what strategies that you're going to bring. So the underlying factor is in this phase you need to also plan out for system replacement, business process, and things like that. So that is essential. And going to the next is after discovery is RPA COE, Center of Excellence, right? So RPA Center of Excellence. So I think this talking about Center of Excellence, I think what it does is it's establishing a hub for RPA implementation, where you support the organization for transformation. So it consists of able-minded, able-bodied minds like RPA evangelists, RPA experts in infrastructure, in terms of deployment, in terms of IT and everything. So setting up a small COE and expanding it is one of the ways of doing it. If you are not able to have set up a big COE, but then the crucial part is the important role is it provides a visibility of what is happening within the organization. So as a response, as a COE, you're responsible to provide visibility for all the employees on what's happening within the organization. So COE also owns the RPA program. So what's being done and everything is owned by RPA program. So talking about expansion is where you have raised your funding and everything is set. So once COE is also set, so the optimized digital workforce and RPA, scaling RPA within the organization. So that's, as part of the COE, you plan out in the discovery phase. After the discovery phase, you plan out which verticals to automate. So that's where the expansion starts. And finally, RPA becomes a digital transformation push, where it becomes the crucial part of your, organization DNA. And why automation anywhere? So we have been looking at, you'll be hearing automation anywhere. Why Mekkanos is, using automation anywhere, and why it's partnered with automation anywhere and all that. I think Mekkanos recommends automation anywhere for RPA journey, as it is the global leader in RPA. As some of you guys already know, in terms of implementation cost, licensing cost, support, flexibility, and AI has always been great. Automation anywhere. So it's widely used for solving complex business problems, and it's basically suggested for enterprise level expansion. So that's how RPA automation anywhere is used. So as you can see, it has amazing customer support, and it is it has large trained ecosystem on RPA provider from a revenue standpoint. So that's why automation anywhere is a good choice to start your RPA journey. And coming to the one of the things is use cases, right? So the main important point that I want to talk about is coming to use cases is you should be in a position to say no. As I said, the first point, prepare to say no. As a company, as a leader, there'll be situations where you'll have to increase, where you have to automate a process which increases time, which increases complexity, right? So you should be prepared to say no, because that's going to significantly reduce the return on investment, because you'll be investing time, resource, and all that. End of the day, you want some return on investment on table, rather than complex, getting into complex process. Because RPA, as you know, it's mainly for structured inputs. If you want to have cognitive abilities, if you want to look at cognitive automations and all that, it has the provision to do that. But then you should be always prepared to say no. So those are the key points that we want to like to highlight. And other than that, use cases will also talk about so we wanted to also talk about how to select a use case, right? So coming to that point, see, selecting a use cases, keeping it simplistic, I think. So rather than also having the use cases to get the most value out of RPA. Organizations, I think, must spend on resources, time and resources in the groundwork to identify which process to be automated. I think COE will help you out with that. Automating something that doesn't work well just doesn't make sense, right? So if you want to, just because it's faster to do it, doesn't mean that you'll have to take that use case for the RPA implementation. So in this case, initial proof of concept or pilot, if you take two complex processes, it will be a problem for you to generate revenues and funds. So that leads to slowdown in the project. It's important to strike a balance between the potential complexity of the automation and the benefits. So whether that be financial ROI or increase efficiency and effectiveness or improved customer and employee satisfaction. So as you can see, some of the successful use cases we have highlighted, that's across industries. So talks about employee onboarding for staffing industry in any industries, data migration, update of vendor records or timesheet consolidation. That is also key in healthcare and many more. And coming to the RPA implementations, the key lessons learned. I think this is where we would like to highlight a couple of points. I think let me take a linear approach. So first point is involving IT and infrastructure team, right, in the pre-implementation stage. So IT and infrastructure team, they are responsible for any patch-related upgrades, with regards to environment. RPA is that will be implemented in an environment. Right now, there are SaaS solutions and on-premise solutions. Most of the customers are on-premise solutions. They need infrastructure, their core infrastructure team to do that. So I think they are responsible for whole maintenance of the infrastructure where you deploy the bot. So involving them in the early stage is key. And next one is planning for support and maintenance, as we saw on the slide 2. Planning this out first is important, because post implementation, the bot is not going to run on its own. So people with technical knowledge needs to maintain the bot. So planning it in advance is essential. And coming to the third point is change advisory board. So this change advisory board, most of the organizations will have it. I think this maintains the company's policies, upgrades, any in-house. Suppose if you're automating any in-house tools, so they're responsible for all sort of changes. So getting them involved, keeping them in the loop, having them talk, getting in coordination with them helps us to plan in advance, because after deployment, if any patch upgrade needs to be done, that will essentially lead to bot failures. So bot needs to be trained, tested, and moved to deployment. So that is required. Getting coordination with change advisory board is important. And defining standard practices, right? So for the debt spiral is most of the companies get into. So it's defining standard practices in terms of development, in terms of infrastructure setup, in terms of process discovery, in terms of deployment and everything. Setting up a standard practice will significantly improve the implementation model. So you won't need to get into problems later stage where you'll be able to identify and then solve it earlier. So that's what we we spoke on RPA debt spiral about that. And the fifth point is key point, high availability and disaster recovery. I think automation anywhere, I think it provides standalone installation. Standalone installation and cluster installations, where when you get a global implementation, I think it is important to have high availability and disaster recovery, where you are prepared. With your IT team and infrastructure team, you're prepared on situations like when something goes out of control, what to do. So if one server goes down, and you know that there's another server that can pick up and running. So the business process will keep on going. And implementing a governance policy compliance, that we've already looked at it, what governance does. And COE is essentially owning the RPA program. I think, as I said, COE is the key. Setting up small and expanding is an option. And having the right minds in the COE will help you expand RPA. Finally, I want to talk about evangelizing and training and empowering employees within the organization. I think this helps this helps in expansion and digital transformation push with RPA, because employees should be aware of what RPA does, and then they should be trained in it. So employees can be finally utilized, for performing high value tasks. Okay, and I think we have come to a almost end of the presentation. I think, sorry, we are 5 minutes late, but then so right now, to sum it up all, I think having the right transformation strategy is the key. So if you separate into pre-implementation phase, implementation phase, and post-implementation phase, you can kind of segregate the 8 pointers that I've given into these 3 phases and then try to work on it. But having the right design, right setup in advance can significantly increase, if it will significantly increase the resource, optimized use of resource and cost effective and everything. So that is the key. And I'm hoping that this session was helpful to you guys. So if you have any questions, please.
We have a question, Arvind. How do you
Yeah.
choose the right process?
Right process, right? Yeah, I think that's a very valuable question, right? So see, selecting a process, see, though we have spoken about these factors, uh, it has other subsets. When I talk about selecting a process comes under pilot or any discovery phase, right? So for that, there is a model called a practice called a feasibility matrix, where there's a predefined set of rules. A process, any process will have an input, output, and then the source target systems and the process, right? So identifying what are the inputs, where the input source is, or how the output and where the output will be integrated, and how a holistic view of how this process is going to expand the support the business. So the it's key to list down the questions on what are the key logical points, and think there is a in the feasibility matrix, and get it answered in advance from business before getting into implementation. I think that will help you in identifying the right process.
Yeah. Thanks, Arvind. We have another question. Which one to choose, on-premise or cloud?
On-premise or cloud, all right. So I think that's also an interesting point. So if you look at Automation Anywhere, so they have on-premise and cloud model, a SaaS solution. It's selecting the on-premise or cloud is completely dependent on your organization policies. But then if you look at it, most of the companies are into on-premise, and on Automation Anywhere cloud is coming up really well. So in another 2 to 3 years of time, I think most of the customers will move to cloud. So it completely depends on your organization choice. It also has cost, implementation cost as well, and data security and everything. Cloud also has it, but it completely depends on the organization, depending on the organization policies. But eventually, cloud, everyone will move to cloud. But I think it's too early to talk right now. But then, yeah, I hope that answered your question. Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, so we have another question. Can RPA be used as a service model?
RPA
As a service model to come under OPEX?
Okay, so it's it can be it's depending on the process. It depends on the implementation roadmap that you choose, right? If you can bring it under OPEX, I think it's a departmental control where you want to implement RPA. But then yeah, as I said, it depends on how you want to set up the journey. How you want to transform the business. So it's completely depending on that. But yeah, it can be done. If the expansion is minimal, I mean, if you don't have complete transformation, organization transformation, that can be done. But if you're looking at a large scale thing, so you might need to think about that.
Okay, and we have one more final question.
Yeah.
What are the predominant applications where Mekkanos could deliver a digital transformation, like SAP, Oracle Cloud?
So, Nada, could you repeat that question? Sorry.
What are the predominant applications where Mekkanos could deliver digital transformation?
Predominant applications. So, so right now, okay, Mekkanos, what we are, what's our vision is developing, digital solutions. Answering to your question, we are widespread, looking at automating, most of the front office and back office processes. So using it, any industries for that matter, right? Staffing industry or any industries for that matter. So I think we are, the vision is to have the digital solutions and to go ahead with it. I think, yeah. I
Okay,
hope, yeah.
that's it, Arvind.
Okay, all right. If you have any other questions, I think we have already 10 minutes past. If you have any questions, any further questions, I would like to request you to send an email to info@mekkanos.com. So we will respond to you as soon as possible. And thank you so much. Thanks for your time thanks for your interest and time to join this webinar. I hope it was useful. Thank you.